Good afternoon and welcome to all to this webinar. I am Suresh Iyengar and I'm a business advisor with the North Central Texas Small Business Development Center. Today is I Love Lucy Day. Who doesn't love this iconic comedy? SBDC is a leading provider of assistance for small businesses. We are grant funded, which allows us to offer services at no cost to you, the business owner. A quick reminder, we will be recording this webinar and then adding it to our YouTube channel. Today's webinar will be interactive, so please feel free to raise your hand, which is the small button at the bottom, if you have a question or comment. Our presenter today is CJ Ballinger. With 25 plus years of boots on the ground experience in human resources, CJ knows HR solutions that work for employers. She started her career with Texas Workforce Commission in unemployment claims, and over the years has served businesses in employee relations, recruitment, and safety. She started My HR Consulting in 2012 to focus on serving small businesses. She is a certified senior HR professional, which is also called SPHR, a graduate St. Mary's University MBA, and an OSHA Authorized Instructor. Her workshops include HR tools and tips designed for small businesses. Welcome, CJ. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate the opportunity to share some information today that's especially relevant for small businesses. And I want to say that I'm not just a presenter for SBDC, I'm also a client. When I went to start my business several years ago, one of my first stops was SBDC. I was able to get a business advisor, and she has been instrumental in helping to guide me along the way. So if you don't have an advisor, I highly recommend that you connect and sign up and see what it's about. It's a very valuable benefit that's provided by tax dollars. So why not tap into that? Today's session is going to be about working with and around difficult personalities. Not that anybody's had to do that, just saying if someone had to work with other people who have difficult personalities, I'm hoping this session will help. Especially with small business owners, sometimes they feel like that their employees own the business and they would just like to try and get some semblance of control back at some point. And so what we're going to talk about today is different aspects of managing different personalities, seeing how you can use different tools to try and get the most out of your employees, and how to handle different situations. We're going to start out by talking about spotting those telltale signs of distress. Sometimes employees, even customers, they will show signs of being in some sort of duress, and it's something that we see the end result of. Sometimes we don't necessarily understand what exactly that we're seeing or how to deal with it. So we're going to talk about different factors that play into people being difficult. We're going to talk about different personality types, generations, how life experiences can intermix in all that. I just want to say that I have gone into greater detail in prior sessions about personality and the generation gap. So we're going to hit on those enough today to be able to tie back into the ability to work with people who are challenging. Then we're going to talk about some safety factors. Sometimes things don't always go as we plan or we hope. Maybe sometimes we have to have a tough conversation or two. We're going to talk about how to kind of plan that out to make sure that that nothing is accidentally escalated. And then we're going to talk about some nuts and bolts techniques that you can use to try and help weave your way around some difficult situations and help you to, as a small business owner, to make informed decisions about how to handle different HR issues that come up. Disclaimer, I'm not an attorney. I can't give legal advice, but I can just provide uh, the tips and tricks from the experience I've had over the years in dealing with human resources. So let's talk about the signs of distress. What exactly does that mean? What you're going to find is that sometimes when people are difficult, they express that difficulty in different ways. It might be verbal, it might be behavior, attitude, but there are telltale signs along the way that let us know when someone is possibly, or even yourself as the business owner, are starting to come under some kind of a duress. That surfaces in things like insomnia, uh, obesity, headaches. Headaches are a big one. Addiction. It's really surprising sometimes to see how much people can function e- even when they're possibly abusing drugs and alcohol. People could still show up to work, right? So if you've got employees that are starting to show signs, maybe they mention that their blood pressure is on the rise, or that they're having a lot of headaches, they can't sleep, maybe they have a lot of sudden weight gain or weight loss. I once knew an executive who was denied a promotion. It was so dramatic that he lost a lot of weight, and you could physically see the toll that his job and the circumstances surrounding his promotion, how much it had put him under duress. So look for those little signs. Look for changes in relationships. Maybe people are extra critical of other people. Maybe you've got an employee who's critical of all your customers, their coworkers. Maybe they pick fights, not necessarily physical fights, but just spats, causing a disruption, checking out, acting like they just don't care about anything anymore. Maybe they are having personal relationship problems. Perhaps maybe there's some affairs or other issues going on in their personal life. And one really big sign is when people start to fixate. So like, for example, if you make some sort of policy change or procedure change and they fixate on it, they don't like it, and they're resistant to any kind of change in the rules or processes at your business, that is one of those signs that they are under some kind of duress, and it's playing out in their relationships with people and their relationships to their job. It can lead to chronic stress, affect people's health. It impacts their work, it could be either impacting their financial security, or maybe financial insecurity is causing them to feel stressed. So just kind of pay attention to what's going on with your employees. I've seen employees act like different people when they're going through a divorce or they've suffered a recent loss, having issues with their kids. And so, really, at some point, all of us go through some sort of hiccup or unpleasant situation, what be it with our relationships in our personal lives or our business lives, or just unplanned emergencies that happen. Once it goes on long enough, and it's chronic, it can really start impacting both your employees' physical and mental well-being. So if you find that they are in a fog, or they're angry all the time, they seem bitter, or perhaps they're in physical pain, all those are signs that maybe they're not functioning at their best. So maybe take a look and say, okay, here are some signs of physical signs of when people are under stress. Dark circles under the eyes, that and breakouts, rashes, hives, losing hair. When people get stressed out enough, believe it or not, they can lose a lot of hair and have a lot of different physical symptoms. I've even heard of people developing, being so stressed out that they develop forms of psoriasis, which is like a skin condition. Deep grooves in the nail, as in like horizontal, those are all little signs of chronic stress. Some nonverbal cues that employees might be under duress are things like rocking, swinging their legs, tapping their fingers on their desk, doing things intermittently, sometimes developing tics, or always keeping their arms crossed, slumping down. Those are all little hints of what might be going on behind the scenes. The 7% you see on the screen is that really only 7% of what we communicate is verbal. The rest is nonverbal. So you may not have an employee that's coming up to you and telling you, look, the plumbing in my house broke, and now, or my foundation, and now I just spent $30,000 to get my foundation fixed, right? Your employee may not come up and tell that to you directly, but they may exhibit other signs that something is going on that you need to pay attention to, because it may not get better by itself. So let's talk about how this intertwines with just some factors that people bring to the job. So for example, personality, where this is talking about difficult personalities. So this is a list of all the different types of personality assessments and theories that you can that are out there. There's different theories about how many different personalities there are. I'm not a scientist. I'm just going to tell you the ones that are the most common that I've seen businesses use, that sometimes helps explain other people's behavior. including possibly ourselves as small business owners. The first one is DISC. We talked about this in a couple of sessions past. I put a link in the slide deck, which is available to you. The DISC assessment or theory says that we're all born with some combination of 4 different personality types, whereas the Myers-Briggs says we're some kind of combination of 16 different personality types. I don't mean 16 different personalities, I just mean 16 different types. So if you're interested, you and or your employees could use these links to go take a free assessment and just see what comes back. You might find that some of the conflict that might be taking place at work may literally be a personality conflict, and it might be something that could be easily resolved just by understanding other people and where they're coming from. We'll talk about, I'm going to highlight, over and do an overview of the DISC personality theory, just to kind of give you an idea. I'm not going to go into a deep dive on this. So you've got supposedly 4 different personality types: the dominant, influencing, steady, and conscientious. And these 4 personalities have distinct tendencies. So let's talk about what that means. The D or dominant, they tend to be direct and results focused. They're not into the warm and fuzzies. So if you as a small business owner are a high D and you don't like a lot of idle chit chat, and you don't really feel like, oh, well, if I have to say good morning to all my employees, I'm going to just be babysitting them, if you feel that way as a small business owner, you might be a high D, and you may be able to get results and be firm and forceful and drive your business to success. But you always have to understand that you need people. If you're dealing with employees that are high D, they might be great go-getters, but they may not necessarily interact on a warm and fuzzy basis with either you or your other employees. And that can cause some heartburn in the workplace once in a while. Influencers, they're the people. They're outgoing. They're great at making a good first impression. Enthusiastic, they are also oriented towards action. They like to see things get done. They're not necessarily the best at zooming into the details and tying up all the loose ends. So the D's and the I's can get along because they're both motivated to press forward, but the I's may be making decisions based upon who they know, who they like, as opposed to the facts and figures. So all of these personalities have something to add to the workplace. It's just that sometimes they can get crosswise with each other just because they have different preferences. The S's are steady, even-tempered. They are like the therapist in your business. All the other employees go to them and tell them their personal issues, and the S's patiently listen and just go about their way. They come in on time, they leave on time, they bring their lunch, they have a routine, and they're just steady as you go, patient, humble. The only thing is that they do not always appreciate change. So if you got a high S employee and your small business is going through a lot of change, that's going to be very stressful for your high S employees. But they're great employees, And you can condition them and get them used to the change, but you have to understand that initially they may not like improvements because they represent change, and they're a very steady as she goes, uh, routine oriented personality type. The C's are the conscientious perfectionist of the world. They're great at looking at details, analyzing, planning. They're great at processes, seeing where processes are broken, putting together systems and processes, and they can be kind of the glue between the S's and the C's. They can be the kind of glue that holds things together. But here's the thing is they don't like making decisions quickly. They want to be able to analyze enough facts that they feel like they're making the right decision and moving in the right direction. So can you just kind of see how there might be conflict between a high D who's wanting to just get it done and check the box, and the C over here says like, wait, we need to analyze, we need to check into some more things. We need to form a committee and look at it and make sure everything's lined up. And the D's and the I's are like, I can't take it, right? So at any point in time, any of these personalities could be a difficult personality. And at any point in time, they could easily conflict with each other. So one of the things as a small business owner you might be able to do is if employees want to participate or you want to do it yourself, is take one of these personalities tests, see where you fall in the theory. I'm not into labels, but I'm just saying that where you fall in terms of the personality theory, and maybe that would help you and your employees get unstuck. Okay, so this is just for your information. These are past president, founding fathers, as it were, who have had the DISC analysis done on them after the fact. So Alexander Hamilton was supposed to be a D. He actually passed away in a duel with Aaron Burr. Benjamin Franklin was the ultimate people person. He was like, we went to France, helped secure funding for the Revolutionary War. George Washington supposedly was a C because he was a very exact and systematic, and so he was the perfectionist, the precision person. James Madison was the S. He has been called the father of the Constitution. I don't know. This picture to me, looks a little bit like a performing artist named David Burns. But here's the thing: is that as you can see, variety is the spice of life, and each of these leaders had very different personality types, but they each brought a lot to the game. Here's just an overview for you. I'm not going to go through this. You can get a copy of the slides so that when you're interacting with your employees, you may be able to look at something like this and go, oh, I think that they might be a high I. So if you have a high I employee, be sure to say good morning, thank you for all you do, some sort of appreciation. If you're dealing with an employee who's a high S, maybe, and you need to make a change, be sure and let them know about it in advance and condition them and get them used to the change. Don't just spring it on them, so to speak. So maybe use this overview to try and say, okay, how can I tweak how I'm communicating and interacting with my employees to get better results? Okay, if you're going to implement a required workplace assessment, meaning you're going to require your job applicants and employees to take some sort of assessment. You're going to want to validate the results. That's a whole other process that we could go into. If you've got a question, just reach out and we can make sure to kind of walk you through what that means. If you're to be on the side of caution, err on the side of caution, I would just make it voluntary. If employees want to participate in an assessment just to see, how things, how the communication flows in the office, I would err on the side of caution because it does take quite a bit of work if you decide you're going to require it. So now let's talk about generation. The generation, we talked about that in depth last session, and excuse me, and here's just an overview of it. Again, not a deep dive. These are the 6 generations in today's world: builders, boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha isn't in the workplace yet. We're really the youngest generation in the workplace is Gen Z. The oldest is the builders. So here we've got this commingling of these 5 different generations, and that also can cause some hubbub in the workplace. Builders come into the workplace thinking, we're going to work hard, we're going to do the right thing, we're going to sacrifice, we're going to conform, we're going to do our duty. Boomers are going to go in and say, you know what, my career is very important to me, and really I live to work. Work for older generations is part of their core identity. On Gen X, they became the latchkey kids of the boomers, and so they really work to live, meaning that their job is part of their life and not necessarily part of their identity. And Gen Y is along the same lines, but the Gen Y grew up in more of a gig economy. So they're a little more entrepreneurial and a little bit better about multitasking and used to just taking charge. Millennials might be the generation that just pieces together 2 or 3 different gig jobs, not necessarily having anything that's secure or anything with benefits. And they're, as a result, they tend to be a tolerant generation. Gen Z is all about inclusion, very tech friendly. They're called the digital generation, and they're the first generation to grow up with mobile phones. So they've not known a world without mobile devices and being able to communicate on the go. And so think about how each one of these generations might rub up against each other or rub each other the wrong way because of their outlook and their values regarding work. How they view their families, that intersects with the small businesses like nobody's business. So builders are all work, no play, just focusing on getting the job done and conforming with the rules. Whereas boomers, they work hard, they play hard. They might work hard, but then go out and socialize afterwards, right? Whereas Gen X is going to be a little more conservative. They're going to be focused on work-life balance, and they may take a pay cut. And I've seen this where Gen X will take a pay cut to have a job where they can be at their kid's soccer game. So their outlook in terms of the priority of work and family has kind of evolved over the years. Gen Y is looking for work-life fulfillment. They want the work to have meaning. And Gen Z is more about work-life separation. It's really kind of pushing back against the idea that work is part of your core identity. For Gen Z, work is what they do, it's not who they are. And so they're not going to want to get a call at 8 o'clock at night asking them for the status of a project. That will not be cool to them. So keep that in mind as a small business owner. How you manage each of these generations is gonna be important to them regarding how it impacts their family life. Communication needs to be tweaked in between the generations. Builders like formal communication, memos, or in person. They're going to be the ones reading your dusty bulletin boards. So they're going to be in it for a formal or hard copy type communication. Boomers are going to be about in person or phone, not necessarily email. The boomers were, maybe some of them were in their 30s, 40s when email became popular in business. So email is not like second nature. For Gen X, email is more like second nature. So boomers, if you want to communicate with them, either talk to them in person or call them on the phone. Gen X is on email and social media. It's kind of contradictory. You think, well, Gen X shouldn't be on social media. That should be Gen Z. But believe it or not, it's really Gen X is going to be on Facebook more than Gen Z because they're tired of seeing what we've had for lunch and our cats and our dogs. So they have vacated Facebook. Gen Y has too, let's just face it. So Gen Y is going to want to hear from you in terms of text or instant message. Email is not their favorite thing. And again, I'm speaking in generalities. This isn't for all people of the generations, but generally speaking, Gen Z is going to want a graphic text, a long text with a lot of words and just everything smushed together. That is not their cup of tea. And they, kind of like the boomers, would prefer an in-person meeting. They would prefer to sit down and have a cup of coffee with someone as opposed to speaking with them on the phone. So how you communicate with your employees matters, and you may need to tweak how you're communicating to get the results that you want. Otherwise, they can be difficult to deal with. Life experiences also impact how people respond at work and behave at work. So if you know your employees, you might know some of their past experiences, where they come from, their culture, their background, maybe if they have been burnt out or had something bad happen to them either at work or in their personal life. All of that kind of filters into their experience with you as their employer. And it may not even have anything to do with you and their experience with you. It's just reoccurring and affecting their present, because what happened to them was strong enough that they're carrying it with them. It could be some sort of personal trauma, health factors like we talked about before with pain, physical pain that really impacts people's ability to show up and have a good attitude at work. Relationship issues that they've had in the past, financial difficulties, challenges, just the noise level in the offices can really impact their desire to interact, because a lot of office spaces have gone to open office areas with cubicles where everybody can hear what's going on with everybody else. You can hear if you're on the phone with a customer, then the customer can hear what's going on behind in the scene, and all those things create kind of an upsetting experience for employees that they bring into their jobs. So what could be causing them issues then? Current experiences, the same thing. Maybe they're currently going through a divorce or having financial issues. Maybe they're currently in pain. All those things will play into their mental health, their physical health. All those things really do impact how we relate to other people. And so take that into account when you are trying to figure out why other people are being so difficult, because there might be a reason for it. So let's then talk about some safety factors. So turning this around and saying that most of the time safety is not an issue when it comes to dealing with difficult people, but at times it can be, and it does need to be something that's in the back of your mind so that you're aware and planning and thinking ahead about what could happen and how you can prevent it. So here are some risk factors. Workers that deal with the public, exchange goods or money or services with the public, workers who work alone or in small groups, workers that work late at night. So can you kind of get how things are going? So a worker that exchanges money with the public, works late at night and works alone, they are going to have the biggest risk factors in terms of dealing with difficult people or perhaps being burnt out themselves. Working in a high crime rate area, early mornings, the community settings, and the area in which businesses is being conducted. That includes delivery of services and goods. So if you've got a small business that's involved with delivery, then you're going to want to pay attention and make sure that both your employees are both safe and that their needs are being taken care of. You don't want them to be dealing in unsafe situations or perhaps going to burnout or have maybe perhaps mental health issues or physical issues because of what they're enduring while they're at the job. So take a look. What do your employees do? Make sure that you've reviewed your payment processes, the physical separation between your employees and customers, the lighting, the security, the devices, the keys, the fobs, who has access. Can employees, or do they have to cross a dark parking lot or parking garage to get to their vehicle? Then that's something you're going to want to try and take a closer look at. And then employee training. What do you need to do to make sure that employees know how to handle difficult people themselves? Perhaps they're not a difficult person, but they're dealing with difficult people day in, day out in terms of interacting with the public. So look at that as your small business and say, you know what? My employees may be dealing with difficult people, so they may need this training. Use physical barriers. What you can't do is tell an irrational person to calm down. You can't tell an irrational person that they're being irrational. So you can't throw a lot of facts and figures at someone who is angry and upset about their bill because they've reached a point where they're beyond logic. So sympathize with the person as much as possible, perhaps postpone the conversation. The key thing is to not escalate the situation and try to calm them down. It is a good idea though to look and see what is around you. Just having, making sure that you have access to a door, or maybe there's a chair between you and the other person. This goes for both employees and clients, because what if you need to have a tough conversation with an employee, and the only thing between you and the employee is a desk full of office supplies that they could try and use against you? What if you try and talk to somebody and they close the door behind them, so the one thing between you and the door isn't irate person? So think through the physical environment. Develop a written prevention plan. If you've got an employee, and let's say that you've got 10 employees, and of those 10 employees, 6 have come to you and said, you know what, I'm worried about Jimmy John. He's just not himself lately. You need to take that seriously. You need to start the communication process with that employee to make sure that they're okay. You don't want to take for granted that it's all going to be all right and it's all going to fix itself. So have a procedure so that if employees feel like something may be going on with one of their coworkers, or they're dealing with a difficult customer, difficult client, that they have a way to document that and let you know, so that you can deal with it before it turns dangerous, not just difficult. That's what you don't want. You don't want dangerous. Typically, employees don't just snap. They have several signs. In retrospect, hindsight is always 2020. In hindsight, you can almost always see some pattern of behavior that leads to them possibly snapping. Some of the telltale signs, which we talked about before, are increased use or abuse of drug and alcohol, um, increased absenteeism, looking disheveled in their appearance and their hygiene, and possibly depression, withdrawal, or maybe even aggressiveness. Maybe they get angry really easily. Different people deal with stress in different ways, but you need to be able to see, okay, something has changed about this employee, and what you don't want to do is try and fight fire with fire, because you'll just end up with a bigger fire. So really kind of keep your head on the swivel and see what's going on in your own business. One more note, one thing you really don't want to do is get yourself in a situation where you're alone. I'll kind of highlight this as we move into the next section of the presentation. But what you don't want to do is take an irate employee or customer and say, okay, come into my office and let's talk about this. Because then you're just putting yourself in a really bad situation. So if you've got a situation where it's evolving from just difficult to being irate, don't pull your employer, your client aside and say, let's go talk about this over to the side or alone in my office, because then you've lost your protection in terms of people being around to help. So let's talk about what happens when you're needing to deal with a difficult situation, a difficult person. How do you do it? How do you walk through it? Because we've talked about, how to recognize it, where it might be coming from. So why it might be happening, how it could, turn dangerous quickly. But now we need to talk about, how do you deal with it? What do you do to try and help improve the situation for yourself and for other people? So one thing I like is called the AAA approach. Alter, avoid, accept. This, I don't know, this like voodoo, right? Alter, avoid, accept. You can apply this to a lot of different areas in your life, okay? So let's talk about what that means. Back up when you're needing to make a decision or a tough conversation and look at the big picture first and foremost. Look at the source. You may find that someone is going through a tough time and they're being a little grouchy, but they don't necessarily mean ill will. Look at the intention. Is someone, maybe they woke up on the wrong side of the bed and they're a little bit grumpy, but they're not causing issues. They're not fighting. Consider if an employee is complaining, think about what they're saying. Maybe they have a reason to be complaining. Maybe there's something that needs to be dealt with or fixed. And then look at, when you're dealing with difficult people, consider the scope. If they've got a complaint, are they complaining about everything and anything and everything all the time? Or are they complaining about one thing in particular? That's where you need to step back and go, okay, I don't appreciate them being difficult. I don't appreciate how they're talking to me, but I know this person, and this may be something that I need to look into further. Okay. And so check yourself and don't just react off the cuff. Take a look at your first A, alter. Can you alter the situation, change something? Is an employee's productivity low? Maybe they have a really old computer. Maybe that they need a little technology refresh to be able to do their jobs better. Maybe it's something that you could alter in terms of the processes of your business. Maybe you need to, have a new policy or change your communication patterns with your employees. The key thing you want to question when you're trying to decide, do I want to try and change the situation, alter the situation? Is it going to benefit you in the long run? Is the juice worth the squeeze, right? So do a cost benefit analysis of what it's going to take to make the change and what you're going to get out of it. Are they helpful? If you were to change something, would it be helpful to you, to your employees, to your business? And would it be respectful? What you don't want to do is be upset about something, hold it in, and then explode on everyone and make a big change all at once. That's not the right kind of alter. What you want to do is be thoughtful and methodical and make sure that it's going to benefit the people who are involved. And sometimes you may have to say no, but there are ways to say no that don't create a difficult situation in your business. I call it a positive no, because you can say no, but then follow it up, right? Say no and follow up with an honest explanation. Employees can see right through. If you're trying to sugarcoat things, they can see right through it. Clarify your reasoning. Let them know the reasons behind your decision, and then, if at all possible, give some sort of alternative. You don't want to say no because I'm the boss, or if you don't like it, there's the door, because they'll walk out the door, and then how are you going to run your business? So try and be empathetic to the other person, but be assertive. Excuse me. Stay in control. Don't get caught up in the situation. Don't escalate. Don't raise your voice. Don't allow yourself to get hooked. Be straightforward, without being aggressive or abrasive. Again, the only thing you're going to get by fighting fire with fire is a bigger fire. And use I statements. I talk about that in another session, so you can take a look at that. But all of these things come together to say, okay, you're the owner of your business, but you're dealing with your employees effectively and respectfully. The second A, avoid. Sometimes you can just avoid situations altogether. Here's a cheesy example, but it's an example. If you don't like traffic, perhaps think about going to work a little bit earlier. That's one way to possibly avoid a stressful situation. If you don't like interacting with another person, you may be able to avoid them. Perhaps not. Take a look. Don't avoid people and employees when you need to be dealing with a tough situation. So don't avoid if it's going to cause you more stress in the long run. If you're just delaying the inevitable, it's not a good time to avoid. Don't transfer stress to another person. So here's an example, and this happens between employees. So what an employee doesn't like to do a task, they just don't do it, and they let another employee do it. Not a good way to avoid. Excuse me. If it's going to impact health or safety, then it's not worth to avoid. So you can't stick your head in the sand and expect positive results, but if you can avoid a difficult situation or making something worse, then that's okay. The third A is accept. You know, there's the serenity prayer that says, accept the things I can't change, and know the difference. I think I just botched that all up, but this is right in line with the serenity prayer. The things that you can't avoid, you can't change, you learn to accept, but you're not really accepting if you're bitter about it. So take a look and go, okay, is this something that I need to deal with, or is this something that I need to deal with in the short term until I can change it long term? Then that's okay. Sometimes things just need to be done, and you got to do what you got to do. I put an example here, like going to the dentist. It may not be the most pleasant thing, but it may be something that you need to do, and just rip it like a band-aid and do it and get it done. So take a look next time you're dealing with an issue, you're dealing with a difficult person, look and say, can I change it? Can I alter it? Can I avoid the situation? Is there a way to change the dynamics to where it's just not going to come up and be an issue? Or is there something I can do to accept it? When you're trying to build acceptance, and I'm going to give this as an example, you've got an employee who is a great employee, but they have attitude, right? They're a good worker, they know their stuff, but they're abrasive and they rub other people the wrong way. Sometimes it's your customers, sometimes it's other employees, sometimes it's you. But you need this employee because they've got special skills and they really do know what they're doing. You can try and influence the situation by building a rapport with them. Find out what you have in common. Look for clues. Is there something that they like? Is there a particular sports team that they like? A particular kind of food? A particular kind of clothing? Or maybe look in their workspace. What do they have in their workspace? Look and see, do I have a common interest, a genuine common interest with this person where I can connect with them? Shared goals, like there's a lot of things that we all want the same. We all want to be able to go home and feel safe at night, right? There are certain things, maybe we're working on a project and we both want the project to be successful. So tap into that to start building a rapport and a relationship with that difficult person, because there's times when you just have to accept it is what it is and you have to make the most of it. So find a way to connect. So there's been times when I've worked with really difficult employees, but I've just determined that I'm going to be nice to them. I'm going to find something that we have in common. I'm not going to be fake. I'm going to be real. And I care about them and I care about their families. And somehow I'm able to turn that relationship around to where it's not so difficult anymore. And so it's when you like someone, you have something that you have in common, it makes it a lot harder to be disagreeable. So, excuse me, the listening is a big part of this. Make sure that you're listening for agreement, not disagreement. Pay attention, ask people how they're doing, and actually remember and care. But take a look, listen to what's not being said. There are a lot of employees that will not be honest with their bosses because they don't want to get in trouble. So listen for what's not being said. Listening is a big deal, and it goes a long way in establishing rapport with your employees and with difficult people in general. We only remember about 25% of what we hear. And so pay attention and try to remember what other people are saying. If they're talking about their families, remember the names of their kids, the people that are important in their lives. And that goes a long way to help smooth out any rough communications or relationships you may be having with someone else at work, especially an employee. Be sure and avoid any kind of negative triggers. People are afraid of being humiliated, of being socially rejected, afraid of failure. Sometimes people are afraid of success as well. So take a look and go, okay, I'm not going to do anything that feels threatening, because if I trigger someone negatively, then all the hard work I've done goes down the drain. Try and figure out how to get to yes. I like to ask people, okay, let's pretend like it's the end of your work day, the end of your work shift, and someone comes to you and they ask you for a favor. They ask you for your help. Like maybe they need help with a report. What could they do to influence me to say yes or no? And how do I want to be asked? If you know these basic things about your employees and difficult people in general, it's all golden, right? Because I'll tell you this, people like to feel respected and not taken advantage of. They want to know that you've given it your best shot. So maybe even ask your employees, say, look, if I were to come to you and ask you to work late because I need help with something, what is the best way that I can get you to say yes? And what are the things, what to say, what not to say? And would you want to be asked in person, phone, email? Find out what they care about and then communicate with them effectively based on that. If employees find that they're being aggressive with them, that's going to be a no. Even if they agree to do it, they're going to try and not do it well. So here's a tip for team building. We talked about this in a prior session as well. Try this with your employees. Get index cards and have your employees anonymously write the proudest moment of their life. It could be personal or professional. Then shuffle the cards and pass them back out, making sure nobody gets their own. And then have participants read the cards out loud. You're going to find so much commonality. I've done this so many times. And I would say everybody in the class can look around and go, wow. I mean, number one, they might learn something valuable that they didn't know about the other person, something that they can really appreciate. But also you're going to find that we tend as a species to care about some basic things, or some basic things that we all have in common. And when you can find a way to connect with other people below all that difficulty, below all the ebbs and flows of life, that we have a lot more in common than we're a lot more in common than we are different. So hang on to that and know that when you're dealing with difficult personalities, step back, don't get hooked. Try and take a step back and look and say, okay, why might this be? And are there some ways that I could positively influence the trajectory? And yourself as a small business owner, make sure you're taking care of you. Look at yourself. You don't want to be that difficult person who is stressed out and angry because you can't sleep at night because you're so worried. Maybe you're worried about the business or something personal, or you just have a lot going on and a lot on your mind. Find your sanctuary, find your happy spot, find a way to laugh, find a way to relax, and take care of yourself so that you know that you're not becoming that difficult person, and that you will be able to be happy in your small business endeavor. So here's some resources for you. I'm not going to go to the links. We've talked about these in prior sessions. You can go check them out on your own. And thank you for attending. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I'll stop sharing now just in case. So hold on one moment. Excuse me.
Yes.
Hi, Suresh.
Yes. Thank you all for joining us today. We will be sending out a survey following this webinar. And here are some upcoming webinars. You can always go to the SBDC website. You can register for the webinars there. You can get contact information. You can schedule an appointment with an advisor. And you can also find resources for small business owners. At this moment, I would like to thank our funding organizations, the Small Business Administration, the State of Texas, the North Texas SBDC Regional Office, and the North Central Texas College. Thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. This ends the webinar.